welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I apologize that we're doing this via video. I think we want to keep everybody safe, but want to make sure that we're providing information for everybody interested in what the redevelopment plan is for Aurora Sheboygan Memorial Medical Center. So I'm Dave Gravener. I'm the hospital president. We'll introduce the rest of our panel, but wanted to just talk about what I think we're hoping to accomplish today. One is just make sure you're informed about our progress. Where are we with the new hospital? We want to talk about our redevelopment plans, how we're partnering with the city and want to partner with you around that. We'll have some opportunity to go through, get some of your ideas, but a lot of it is really letting you know what our time frame and process is. So welcome. This is our first of 3 sessions, so you're the guinea pigs. So let us know how we're doing as well through this. So with that, I've introduced myself. I'll pass it on for Victoria.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Victoria Navarro. I am the Regional Director for Planning, Design, and Construction for Advocate Aurora Health.
Hi, I am Roberta Folicki-Paneski, and I am the alderperson in the City of Sheboygan for District 2, which encompasses the Memorial Hospital property.
Good evening. I'm Todd Wolf. I'm the former alderperson, District 2, and I recently took the position of City Administrator for the City of Sheboygan.
Hi, my name is Danya Littlefield. I'm a planner with GRAEF, and I'm working with Advocate Aurora Health as a consultant and facilitating this session today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Fonseca. I'm a planner at GRAEF, and I will be running the questions and answers. So I'll be managing all of your input throughout the meeting. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was muted. Just to kind of get everybody grounded, I think why we're here really is a response to make sure that you're informed. This is our neighborhood. Many of our team members live in our neighborhood around the Aurora Sheboygan Memorial Medical Center. And I think we want to make sure that we're just keeping you informed on how we're, where we're going and how we're supporting that with both the city and the neighborhood. So we'll talk a little bit about the process that we'll be going through and make sure that we're keeping you informed along the way. And then also, I think our commitment to just make sure there's opportunities to share and give feedback along that journey. That's really our main purpose today. So I think we wanted, before we kind of get started with our existing campus, it's just an opportunity to talk about where we are with our current plans and what we're doing around the medical center for Sheboygan County. So we're about 50% complete with the construction. Really our plans are to, you can see here kind of the site that we have. So this is just in between Acuity and the UW Green Bay Sheboygan campus. It's kind of where our plans are. You can see we have a medical office building in the middle. We have, or in the left side, we have all of our outpatient procedures in the middle, and then our inpatient tower. So we're about 50% complete with the construction. You can go to the next slide, Anya. This gives you a visual. So how the facility will look. I think that the land is definitely, we want to integrate nature with how we're delivering healthcare. And so I think that helps us be able to do that well. You can see here a rendering of what it will look like. This is standing kind of on the corner of Taylor and Union Avenue there. So just get a sense of the scope and the size of the project. Next slide. As I said, we're about 50% done with completion of the building. Our hope by the end of the year is to have it all enclosed. The idea would be that we would be able to start seeing patients in 2022. So it's we're looking at about summer of 2022. I think one of the things that's unique about this and working with the state is that we will have to close the Aurora Medical Center, Sheboygan Medical Center, and transition to this new center in a 24-hour period. So there's a lot of planning that will be going into that planning. It's really a one-day period in which we'll be transitioning from our existing campus to the new campus. So we'll have a lot of planning, but I think exciting with that. So I think that's all I have on the update. So I'm going to transition to Victoria Navarro, and Victoria has been my partner on the Sheboygan Hospital project, and also has responsibility for facilities, which is also the kind of helping to manage the process of how we would transition the current Aurora Sheboygan Memorial Medical Center site. So she'll talk about that redevelopment. So Victoria.
Thanks, Dave. So I want to introduce who are the key stakeholders and the people that will be involved during this redevelopment process. So everyone will have a voice, not only the community in our neighborhood, but Advocate Aurora Health, the city, and our future developer. Here I want to give an overview on the timeline when we depart the site and clear and raise the existing hospital, do the demolition, and then make way for the redevelopment by the new developer. I'd like to kind of give you some idea of the phasing and just this multi-year long process. So all of these are estimated timelines, and you will learn more throughout the presentation about the opportunities where you can give feedback and be a part of the process. So here we are in this information phase, and we are engaging with the Sheboygan neighbors about the redevelopment process this evening. We're going to continue to keep you informed and get your feedback into the summer of 2022. As Dave said, we will have the new medical campus complete approximately in that first part of 2022, and then we'll begin to see patients at the new medical center in the summer. And then from there, throughout the next few years, we'll be preparing that site and determining the possible uses by working with a new developer. We will be working with a partner to remove all of the materials from the buildings, make improvements on the campus property before we actually redevelop it. And then we transition the site to a new developer for ownership. And that'll continue through 2025 and beyond. Thank you.
All right, so we want to also just talk a little bit about what happens after the site transitions to a new developer. And, as Victoria was pointing out, that is actually pretty far from where we are now in the process. And once a new developer is involved, Advocate Aurora Health will sell the property to that new developer with approval from the city. And the developer will work with the city to complete the redevelopment process. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Roberta and Todd to talk a little bit more about what that process with the city will look like.
Thank you, Danya. I just want everybody to first understand that we, the city, have been working with and have a great relationship with Advocate Aurora. we've been working with them since the very beginning, and I've been working with them as a past alder with the development of the developer's agreement. So it's very important that everybody understands that we have a clear communication between Advocate Aurora and the city. And when the time comes that a developer is brought forward, the developer will basically be working with the city in presenting a, their developer's agreement and what they see will be the best use of the property to fit within the neighborhood, and the city will work with them diligently in making sure that it applies to all of our city ordinances, our policies, procedures, and that it's basically, because this is a significant size of development to a neighborhood, we want to make sure that it mirrors the area and that it provides proper development and is an accent to add value to the neighborhood. So hopefully you guys will understand that we have a great relationship and we will continue to have participation working together into the future. Roberta?
I would just like to add that 7 acres is a significant chunk of property in the middle of a city, and put emphasis on the fact that we are very aware and are conscious of whatever goes on that site needs to be part and parcel of the neighborhood that already exists around that site. I've served on the Redevelopment Authority in the city for a number of years and have worked with numerous developers. So as this progresses, we'll be lockstep with those who want to develop. I would expect that there may be several developers who are interested, which would give us and Aurora a choice of what to do and how to do it. And again, the community can be part and parcel of that.
All right, so now I'd like to move to a interactive portion of this evening's meeting here where you can share your ideas. So for everyone joining at home, this is an interactive activity. It uses a website called Mentimeter, and it'll allow you to give some real-time feedback. And to participate in the activity, we would ask that you find a smartphone if you have it. I think that, so that's the easiest way to give feedback through this activity. If you don't have a smartphone, don't worry. There will be plenty of other ways to ask questions and give feedback throughout the process, and we will get into some of those later in the presentation as well. However, this is a fun opportunity, so we hope that you join us using your smartphone now. Just a couple notes. This program, Mentimeter, doesn't cost anything. It's fun and interactive for you to join right now. Your feedback will be anonymous and secure. But we also want to note that your feedback will be automatically visible to everyone attending the meeting today. So whatever you type in, everyone will see. This is part of, us starting a community conversation with you. The feedback will be retained and shared, with the partners you see on the call today, Advocate Aurora Health, the city, and also the future developer. So if everyone would, who would like to participate via Mentimeter could get out their phone and go to your web browser. And anyone, if any of the panelists feel compelled to participate, I think that would be okay too. So go to your web browser on your phone, type in menti.com, and you'll get a little website that looks like this, which asks you to enter a code. menti.com. Once you get to that web page, you will enter a code. It's a 7-digit code, 4676447. Now I want to mention, you can join this interactive activity if you are the Zoom call, if you're watching this broadcast on your television, if you're watching this session in the viewing session from the Common Council of Chambers, any of the options, this is available to you. So you can go ahead and do that. And then you will notice that there's going to be some questions that come up, and you can type your answers to those questions. Again, keep in mind, this is visible to everyone. So I'm going to switch to that part of the presentation so that we can take a look. Okay, and the first question is, what should a potential developer know about the Memorial neighborhood and the area around the site? So as you're typing your answer to this, you should see this appear on the screen. We'll leave this up for a couple more minutes to get some more answers here. Awesome. I see a lot of family-oriented neighborhood, a lot of neighborhood pride. This is great. Stay here for another few seconds and then we'll move to the next question. Okay. I'm going to move on. I don't want to miss any, so I keep hesitating. Okay. All right. I'm moving to the next question now. What are your hopes for the future redevelopment? And this is use one word or phrase. You can type them all in on one line and you can submit multiple times. This is great. We're getting a sense of what people are thinking. This particular question works best with a word or a couple words. But this is great. We're getting some idea of what you all are thinking. Okay. And remember, as you do this activity, we're going to share some other ways that you can give feedback throughout this process if you have some more ideas or a longer, longer bit of feedback. Okay, I'm going to move to the next question. Hard to move away when people are still adding feedback. The next question is, if you have any worries about the redevelopment process, please share them with us here. All right, we've seen a lot of good ideas here. We're going to address some of these throughout the presentation. Some of these concerns, we'll make sure that we address a couple of them in this very presentation, so you get some immediate feedback on this. And if you have a few more that you're, wanting to share with the team, we're also going to tell you how to stay in touch with us. Okay. All right, I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint here. All right. Thank you all so much for that feedback. That was excellent. We really appreciate hearing from you in this session. I want to tell you, re-emphasize a little bit about how this feedback will be used. So, right now we're early in our timeline, engaging with you, the neighbors in Sheboygan, about this process. Once the site transitions to a new developer, in a later stage of this process, this feedback will be shared with them, and it's also going to be used throughout the process by Advocate Aurora Health and by the City of Sheboygan. As you've heard everyone express today, we're, the team is dedicated to engaging with the community, keeping neighbors informed and hearing feedback and input. I also wanted to emphasize, we have this sort of yellow section at the beginning of the timeline here that encompasses this year and next year about keeping you informed and getting your feedback. There will actually be opportunities to give feedback throughout this timeline. In fact, on an annual basis, there will be some way to give feedback throughout. I just wanted to assure people of that. And I'm going to turn it back to Dave to talk a little bit more about the other avenues that that you all have to give input on this process.
Sure. So, I think one of the challenges is, particularly in these times, that we want to make sure we have an avenues outside of the use of technology, but we also know, I think we're kind of challenged, I think, with COVID. So I think we're committed to making sure we have an annual process to yearly process that would talk about where we're at in our process, make sure we give back how we're considering the requests that have come in and the comments. So we'll do that on an annual basis going forward. We're also going to do a community forum here sometime before the end of the year. That'll be open up to the broad public, but we'll also make sure we're using that opportunity to talk about what our plans are for redevelopment, get any feedback there. We do have a website, so you can go to asmmcredevelopment.com. And we provide updates in there. So a lot of what you'll see today will be in there. We'll have the video on there. But any developments or changes, that's a good way that you can kind of keep informed. It's also, there's opportunity to provide comments there as well. So, and then I think lastly, we want to make sure we're working with the neighborhood. There's very robust Memorial neighborhood group that we're part of, but there also are 6 other kind of neighborhoods associated in the city to this that are invited to the session tonight. And so, we want to make sure we're working with those different neighborhood associations to keep them informed and make sure there's dialogue. So, lots of opportunity. I think we've had over 67 visitors so far to the website. If you're interested, you can put your name in there and email in address. That's a way in which we can send information to you, like about tonight or anything that are, good opportunity to get that through an email. And then, as I mentioned, the different neighborhood associations. I think we're committed to keeping everybody informed, as I've talked about. I think we want to make sure that we transition well with the neighborhood. I think I know everybody's anxious to let's get to it. I think our focus right now is building a facility that's going to service the Sheboygan County area. I think once we vacate it, the process that we talked about is a, you know, up to a 3-year process that would, we can talk a little bit about the Q&A session there, but and that's really to make sure that we're leveling, we're you know, making the property safe and transition in a way that we've committed with the city on, that a developer can then move forward with it. So those are kind of the 3 steps, and that's really over you know, a 6-year process. So we know people are anxious for the end result, but you know, want to make sure we're keeping everybody informed along the way. So.
Great, thank you. So we're going to go into the question and answer portion of the meeting today. And I wanted to start out with some questions we've received so far via the website, asmmcredevelopment.com, that Dave already mentioned. And then also through feedback from neighborhood associations. This is a great time if you have further questions that you would like one of the panelists to address. If you submit them in the Q&A Zoom dialogue, then Tanya will be facilitating further discussion about those questions, you know, as it's possible at the end of this session. But we wanted to start with some we've received so far. And the first one I wanted to just note is we've received a lot of comments and questions about the demolition process, and especially how it will impact the neighbors and how it will be communicated. And we received, as I said, many questions on this, and I want to turn it over to Victoria to talk a bit about that process.
Sure, thanks, Tanya. So the demolition process is roughly going to begin within 3 years of occupancy into the new hospital. And once it's begun, we have about 6 months to complete that demolition. And we are going to be taking, we're very sensitive, first of all, to environmental concerns. And so there's a process and strict guidelines that meet the environmental regulations. So we do have some things like a generator, which has some fuel and oil, and we want to make sure that none of that is contaminating the area, so we will properly remove that. And the way we do that is we start with a phase 1 environmental study, and we'll engage a specialist that will work to complete and identify really any potential harmful materials. This could be underground fuel and oil, asbestos throughout the building materials, lead, mold, mercury, etc. Once that study is completed, then we'll create a plan to safely abate these harmful materials, and we will work with a professional environmental abatement company, and then the materials will be removed prior to demolition with our demolition contractor. And we are going to be completely demolishing the building and leaving it really just a gravel site. And when we turn that over to the new developer, it'll be protected and in that condition.
Great. Does anyone have anything to add about that process before we move? We have a couple other questions I want to get to also before we dive in.
Tanya, if it's okay?
Sure.
Sure, thank you. Just to expand on Victoria's review of the site of raising the property, it's really understood that the city understands, Aurora Advocate understands that we want to make sure that when the building is raised, that we take into consideration the neighbors and the care of that location. It is a very large location, and it's part of the developer's agreement that they're going to make sure, like Victoria said, that there is no contamination left on the site when the site is delivered to a developer. And the city will be involved with the decision and the application of the developer to make sure that we have the best opportunity for future development for the city and the neighborhood. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I might say it a little bit differently, Todd. I think I think that the developer will be confirmed both by Aurora and the city. So the process for that transition is kind of two-sided. It's not just Aurora. I know there were some comments around that. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Great. I want to move to another question, which is about a little parcel of land that Advocate Aurora Health owns in the neighborhood, separate from the large site we were looking at. And I think, Dave, you wanted to discuss that briefly right now.
Sure. Maybe we could go back. Some may not know about that or whatever. Can we go back to the
Map?
Slide 17. There you go. So right here, there's an alleyway. Here's the hospital. Oh, my cursor doesn't work, does it, Tanya? There's a. Can you
see? Yeah. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah. There you go. Yep.
Okay.
There's an alleyway, and then there's a piece of property right behind that, and we own that. It's a kind of a legacy piece of property that had a house and is kind of gone. That abuts to a number of neighbors there. I think there's concern about, how we kind of manage that transition. So it will be separate from this hospital project. I think that, redevelopment, it's something we can move forward with more timely. I think we're committed to working with residents who are adjacent to that property. We've had some interest in it. I think rightly so, people want to make sure that it transitions well. The city has been successful in how they've done this work with others with that. So I think it's something that we're interested in exploring a transition plan with the residents there and working with the city. So
Great. I'm going to switch back up here. So we have another topic, and we started to hear a little bit about this in the feedback that you all were giving us in the interactive activities with Mentimeter, and that would be about what will be the future land use of the site once a new developer does get involved and sort of new building happens on the site. I wanted to turn that over to Roberta and Todd to address, those questions about future land use in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Danya. It truly is, at least as a past alder, the outcry that I heard from constituents in the neighborhood was the reuse of that 7 acres, which again is a very significant size of development for an older neighborhood. So it is, in my opinion, especially as a city administrator moving, now, is that we continue to look at the ability to have, single family homes or townhouses or something of that respect, something that will somewhat mirror the neighbors and bring value to it, so that we, again, we're not looking at apartments, we're not looking at anything of that sort. So they would have to go through several steps where they would go to the planning commission, and the different developers would be reviewed by the city, and again, working with Aurora Advocate. And then from there, the city would also be working with the developer on which would be the better developer that provides the best value that fits within the community and neighborhood. And then from there, we would basically go through the city ordinances to make sure that architecturally it works. The planning department has the ability to review it, and all of this would have to be approved by a committee and council.
I would like to add that I have been on the Redevelopment Authority in the city for many, many years and have reviewed multiple development processes and agreements. So I think we're in a good place. The other is in years past, I have been involved with Aurora. I did emergency medical services planning. So I was part of that. And I've also chaired one of the Aurora, the Visiting Nurse Association of Wisconsin. What I know about both of those things is I know the city reaches for quality, and I also know that Aurora reaches for quality. So I'm feeling fairly confident that as things progress, yeah, we're probably going to have a few lumps and bumps, but I think overall and the end product will be quite wonderful. Okay, Danya.
All right, well, thank you so much. We're going to move now to some of the questions that you all have submitted in the past few minutes. And I'm going to turn it over to Tanya to pose a couple of those, you know, to the team. I just also want to note, it's possible we won't answer every question that was submitted, and Tanya will get into this, but there will be opportunities for, you know, further questions and answers in the future, as you've already heard about.
Certainly, and we will post any, you know, Q&A sort of answers on the Social Pinpoint website after the 3 sessions, so that you have kind of a consolidated list of questions and answers. We've received 4 questions. So I think the first is in regards to the new facility. And I think this is likely a question for Dave, but it may also involve Victoria, and that is, are you able to point to each section of the facility? And this was in reference to, Dave, your tour of the new facility. So Donnie, if you could maybe return us to slide number 10, Dave could kind of just let us know what will be in the new facility, because everyone seems very excited about that.
Okay, so do you, and Anya, we probably should have quizzed you on our streets. So you can see the double street there, that is Taylor Avenue. And then turning right, that is Union Avenue. That's where the construction is going. If you've tried to get through there, our hope by November is to have that complete. The entry to the main campus is right where Danya is at now. This is an entrance that's going to have really all of our outpatient, all of our medical office functions will come through the main entrance. The building to the left of that entrance then is our medical office building. So in that building will be 5 clinics, our orthopedic center with a large sports medicine. We'll have OB and women's services there. And then on the 3rd floor will be cardiology, pulmonology, and general surgery. So many of the specialists that really work in the hospital are going to be located there. It'll create for a center for everybody to be able to get one place to get their cardiac care or their women's health services. So that was part of the design. If you go to the right there, is the main entrance. That's kind of a retail open area. You'll have a beautiful view of the healing garden, which the whole building is centered around. That's where the cursor is now. So, and our hope is to have community events, have ability for community. There's a conference center right below there that will have many of our support groups and those kind of functions for the community. You go then to the large square there. That's what we call our diagnostic and treatment area, which really is all the services that are outpatient related. So imaging, our surgery services, that is, you know, really kind of the guts of that, that it works both for the inpatient and outpatient. To the very far left up in the corner, not there, over on the other side, that's our emergency room. So they'll be, you can see it'll have a separate entrance. For those of you come to the hospital today, you get the main entrance and the hospital together. They'll kind of separate that. I think they'll provide for a better experience for patients. And then to the very right is, that's just that's our building that houses all of our utility work and those kind of things. And then here's our inpatient tower, that long, that really is going to have a beautiful view into the forest, or the healing garden. It's 3 stories, and they'll have outpatient or inpatient behavioral health services. They'll have our women's services, and then all of our medical and ICU care will happen there. So hopefully that gives you a good orientation. We are working to, you know, one of the things that we've done is we're committed. There was $324 million that was kind of focused to do this development, but we've had a fundraising effort outside of that for close to a $5 million fund, and that is really meant to enhance, you know, what we're delivering to the community. So we're really hopeful to have this property connected to the neighbors. And so UW and walking trails on Taylor Drive, I think we really are looking to see how we can kind of integrate with the new neighborhood as well. So probably more than you wanted to hear, but excited about the project, had to talk about it.
Great, thanks, Dave. So our next question is in regards to the development process, and this participant is asking whether there is a list of developers who have contacted Aurora already about the site in Sheboygan. So I'll turn that over to you, Dave. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I think one of the things that I think it's important for people to be aware of, when we did the pro forma associated with the new hospital, we did not, we put in the dollars associated with raising the building, and we did not put in dollars that would, in essence, you know, profit from the sale of the property. So I think we're, you know, our motivation is to, you know, first and foremost, have a good transition in the neighborhood. Many of our caregivers live in the neighborhood. I think we've been very fortunate with the relationships that we have in the neighborhood. And I think we're, you know, we want to make sure that this transition goes smooth. So that's our motivation. I think we definitely have had, I think with support from the city, you know, the redevelopment agreement really was to put some structure around that and make sure that we're clear about what that is. So one of the first things that we wanted to do was make sure that we had, we brought on somebody that's done this, right? I've never gone through this process or whatever. That's why we have Danya and Tanya here. They, with GRAEF, they've been involved in kind of this process. They're helping us through that. I think we do not, you know, we don't have a short list of developers. All of our focus right now is getting into that new facility and then just at least outlining a process. I think when we get closer, based on the feedback that we've received, then we'll, you know, put that together with the city about what we'd be looking at, and then would work to identify potential people. I think one of the things that, you know, for us, it's important that they have local connection and knowledge. So, you know, that's, I think, one of the things that the city has been really supportive of, is making sure that we have someone that understands the community that we're in and that development. So, so that's, I guess, my thoughts on it. Todd, I don't know, or Berta, if you have any other thoughts.
Dave, I totally agree with you. The city has you know, we've got a great relationship. We've proven it over the many years. You guys have been great working with us from the beginning, even prior to the conception of where it was going to be located. I just want I just want everybody to understand that that relationship is going to continue, and that the city has just like Aurora has the best interest of the neighborhood and the proper use, and we will be continuing to communicate and get the neighbors involved. We are listening. Roberta?
Thanks. I would just like to add, the development process is lengthy. And you can see that on the time frame and on the timeline. So from the time that developers know that this is a potential, it is still 4 or 5 years out for them, and a lot can happen in that time frame. So sometimes developers come to the table right at the very end. Sometimes developers come to the table at the very beginning and then drop out. There's a whole developer's world out there, basically. So as you move forward, it's like a river. You just go where the river flows, and sometimes the tributaries come in and sometimes the tributaries peel off. So I expect that's what this process will be like. Danya.
All right, Tanya, do we have another question?
We do, yeah. The next question is also about the development process, and it reads as following. At what point in the timeline will we know what the developer's plans are for the site? So Dave, I'll let you start, but I'm sure Todd and Roberta have some thoughts too, given their experience of seeing things unfold in the city.
Well, I think, we are not a developer, right? Aurora will transition the property. I think that's the plan. I think the feedback we're getting will help inform us in the city around the right developer. So I think this process, right now it's just trying to outline what process it is, that time frame that Roberta kind of talked about. I think we will use this information that we get along the way that kind of says, here's the scope in which we would be comfortable, the city comfortable with that transition. And then I think then we'll kind of go from there. So
I guess I'd like to address that too. There is something in the development process called the RFP. It's dear to my heart because that happens to be my initials, Roberta Felicki Pineski. So an RFP starts the process, and all of those initial comments that we saw, families, trees, that is incumbent upon the writing of the RFP. And I would think that that's a collaborative effort between the city and Advocate Aurora, so that the RFP embodies what we really want, so that the developers have the expectations going into their proposal about what we expect them to come out with. So that RFP won't be written right away. It will be written down the line after a lot of input from a lot of people, but that's how the process starts. Todd, do you have anything to add?
Very well said. RFP, I wonder why it stuck in my head, but anyway, I do want to expand a little bit just on the timeline. It is a long timeline, and I also want people to understand that because we are looking at single family homes at this point, I want people to understand that it takes even years to fill that. It's not like you're building just one building, like an apartment complex, where it goes up within, say a year. When you're building multiple homes, typically a developer has to lay it out, and there's going to be work with the city, whether it's sewer laterals, redoing the streets. There's going to be a lot of work from the water, the gas, the electrical. There's a lot of parts and pieces, a lot of moving parts that have to be taken into consideration. So a development of this size can take many years to get started, and it can take many years to actually produce before it's complete. So it'll be it'll be a journey, as Roberta had mentioned, and we'll be on that river for a while. It's all yours, Danya.
I'm going to jump in, if that's okay, with the final question, which is really just kind of a good operations logistical reality for us that Scott from WSCS reached out, asking if we could maybe start the meeting a little bit earlier to let the participants in for future broadcasts. So certainly we will do that. And I just want to remind everybody that in addition to it being broadcasted, we are going to post a recording of one of these virtual Zoom sessions to the Social Pinpoint website, so that, or the project website, so that we all have access to this information. It can be shared. So please be sure to let your friends and neighbors let them know that, and let them know that if they do plan to attend a future Zoom meeting, they will be let in a few minutes earlier, just to make sure everything works smoothly. And of course, again, any other questions, you're welcome to come back to future meetings, but they will be the same information in general. So the project website is really going to be a fabulous resource for you to post more ideas and thoughts and questions as you have them, either publicly or also through the comment form. And Danya, do you have anything else to note in that regard?
No, I think that was well said. If you missed a few of the minutes in the beginning, keep checking that website. We'll make sure that information is available to you. All right, I think that wraps up our Q&A portion. I'm going to skip all ahead to our end and turn it over to Dave.
Sure. Well, thank you for attending and your interest and your feedback. And we want to make sure that we keep in touch with you. So I outlined different ways in which we can do that going forward. So know that we'll have an annual process. Minimally, we want to work with different neighborhood groups, but particularly the Memorial Neighborhood Group. And then we have our website there. So thanks for making time and your comments today.